to the Super Speedway.
Welcome to episode 221 of the Super Speedway podcast, recorded Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. I'm your host, Eric Young, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. And James, if I sound a little funny, I'm battling the corona.
The COVID got him.
Yeah, not the beer, not the beer. Definitely the coronavirus, but I am over it for the most part. I will try to mute the mic when I cough, but otherwise I'm good to go.
You are a true battle-tested warrior coming in here with the Rona.
I messaged you like over the weekend and said I've got it, but I'm going Tuesday no matter what.
Good. See, you're soldiering on. That's all right. Well, yeah. Eric, it's February, and you know what February means.
Yeah.
Racing season. It's time.
It's racing season, and it's the real deal now. We have NASCAR this weekend, James. Yep. This weekend.
Some bastardized version of NASCAR will be going on this weekend.
So it begins. We will talk more about the Clash because I want to get James's take on it, and James was claiming earlier he was grumpy, so we'll see how that goes. Before we get into that, though, let's talk some news because there's a little bit of stuff. I've kind of picked and chosen what we're going to discuss because there's all kinds of stuff. We're not going to sit here and talk about every sponsorship announcement and whatever this week because there's been a bunch. But James, I'm leading off with one that I'm sure you're pretty excited about. David Smith's got himself a new job.
Oh man, yeah, big fan of David Smith.
Yeah, yes. He is the new Roush Fenway Keselowski head of analytics.
Whoa.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Easy for me to say, right?
That's right.
I mean, normally we probably wouldn't talk about something like this, but we're fans of David Smith and all the stuff that he does. And if you're gonna take a stats guy, man, anybody better than that?
No, this is somebody who's looked at the data for before it was even a thing. He was NASCAR auto racing Moneyball before the Moneyball movie and book. That's who this guy is, and this is an interesting move.
Yeah,
especially with Eric, with this new car and everything coming in, it's supposed to tighten things up a little bit, and if this guy can come in and give you some valuable data that can pick up a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there, that could be the big difference for a two-car team to make the playoffs, things like that. So I love it. I'm rooting for him. It's definitely weird to go from the news space,
right,
where he was writing for The Athletic, and he did some stuff for the Wall Street Journal,
one of those,
some of those other higher publications, but now to get into the competition side is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with it and kind of watching this from a distance to see if there's anything that comes from it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what we'll actually see. I mean, more than likely we won't see much of what he's doing. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting take. And I don't know, James, if this is something that we're noticing because we know who David Smith is, or if this is something that's like something new.
This is a trend.
Yeah,
this is I got a great example, something that's close to this. There's a NBA bettor. His name's Haralabab Vulgaris. It's a hard name to say. I call him H-Bob, and he comes on the Bill Simmons podcast quite often. But a few years ago, he got hired by the Dallas Mavericks. So this professional bettor, who was seeing all of these trends, was brought in to help with the analytics of the Dallas Mavericks. And it didn't end up working out so well for him. I mean, the team was pretty solid for a long time, but then, never winning a championship here recently or anything like that. But that's just one example of people out there in the data sphere, I guess,
right,
coming into the competitive side of things to start making analytic choices from a different perspective, which is really cool.
Yeah, very neat for sure. Elio Castroneves has said he'd be interested in running the Daytona 500. Talked a little bit on Sirius XM this week. Of course, he got the win in the Rolex 24 with his teammates last weekend. So Sirius XM NASCAR Radio had him on along with his teammates, and he talked a little bit, gave a little insight in the Penske deal, that he was interested in it when he was back with Penske, and Penske kind of put the kibosh on that. And now that doesn't have that Penske relationship anymore, kind of would like to see would like to get a shot at it. What do you think of that, James? I mean, he was obviously a great personality in the SRX series. Got a chance to run some stock cars there. Performed okay over there. Personality like that's got to be good for NASCAR, right?
Oh, and people forget well, not people. I mean, I guess racing fans might forget, but he's probably just as well known for winning Indy 500s as he was with Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
Because he was on that show when it actually mattered. I don't think it matters much anymore, but
right.
But that was a thing. Like that's a thing when they do when athletes and stuff do those kinds of things. But yeah, he's trophy hunting now because he's going after the crown jewels because he got his Rolex 24 win. Now he's got the Daytona 500 set his sights on. I think it's funny. We were laughing about the old guys in the SRX series, and this guy's just not. He's just getting started, man.
Yeah. Elio. I was not a fan of Elio. We talked about it last year. Was not a fan of his until seeing him in the SRX series, and I had gained a new appreciation for him in that series. So, I'd love to see him come over here and give it a shot. I hate to break it to Elio. It's not as easy as some of these guys think it is to come over and get in an old stock car and go bust around 200 miles an hour at Daytona. But hey, come on over, man.
I wonder how influenced he is by SRX after running some of those short tracks with those big heavy race cars. To think maybe he can try to wheel a NASCAR race car around a little bit is pretty interesting. And he had a couple of moments in SRX where he was leading on some of those short tracks he's not, he's used to running those fancy high performance, Indy cars, and to have him out there slinging it, rubbing fenders and getting into skirmishes on the short tracks is actually pretty fun. So
right.
He'd be a great personality to come over to NASCAR. I wouldn't expect him to have any success, but
no,
he would. He would definitely be fun to have around the pits.
He gets some eyes on the series again. He'd bring some of those fans over that are not necessarily NASCAR fans, and I feel like NASCAR's kind of got a little bit of a resurgence right now, and everybody kind of wants to come over here and have a part of the pie again. So come on over.
And then non-North American base too.
Right. No kidding. That would be great. We need
Elio's
that.
Got some reach. Elio is kind of like a smaller version of like a Lewis Hamilton. If Lewis Hamilton's probably the most famous race car driver in the entire world. There's no probably he is.
Right.
He is. If Lewis Hamilton were to do this, that would be like a massive scale event of somebody like that coming over. Elio is kind of like the 50% version of that. He's super popular, but not that popular.
Right.
So, but still would be great to have him come in. I mean, I remember when Danica was probably a bigger deal when she started sniffing around, and Dario Franchitti and all those guys, all those drivers.
Well, I don't think any of us are under the illusion that Elio is going to come over here and run a full-time schedule. No. He's going to come to a one-off, and he's going to
try something. Yeah, and I wonder if he's talked to Jimmy Johnson too. That's a connection there.
Well, I know there's been a lot of those guys talking to Jimmy about it and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Jimmy could definitely make a connection somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
for sure.
Speaking of SRX and the boss Tony Stewart, James, you're going to get to see him back in the old NASCAR ranks a little bit this year, but in the booth.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, Tony will be in the booth for the Clash and the Daytona 500 for Fox. We'll get to get him a little excited.
I'm gonna bust his ass
and stuff like that. So yeah, good to hear all Smoke back at the track, right?
Yeah, and he's not great in the booth, but I mean, with him and Boyer ripping at each other, I think that'll be pretty entertaining for the fans.
Yeah, for
the next couple of weeks.
I agree. There's definitely going to be some good ribbon between those two. I thought Fox, of course, made their announcement as far as who's going to be in the booth throughout the season. Aside from this rotating analyst role that they're going to have, they did not announce who else was going to be in that. But I think that probably the most exciting one that I saw out of all of them is that Kurt Busch is going to be helping out with the Xfinity Series broadcasts again this year. And I really like Kurt in the booth. I think that's probably another future thing that we're going to see when Kurt steps away from racing. Maybe he'll hop into the booth. He does a good job. So, so we'll see old Tony back at the track for a couple weeks. When I read the press release at first, I kind of read it quickly and it sounded like they were going to be at the Fox studios and I was really ticked off, but no, they're going to be at the track. So, good deal.
Yep. Yeah. I'm excited. I mean, he's, I I like the idea of the rotating boot, and I feel like it's worked really well. Like you were saying, Eric, with the Xfinity series,
Yeah.
That's just been a really nice, kind of engagement with the drivers, getting more, more time out there, and you know who's great at it. You said Kurt's great. Joey Logano's pretty good.
Yeah.
Even Brad, I thought Brad Keselowski was really good at it
Yeah.
too. So a lot of those guys. So yeah, if we got a couple of retired guys kind of coming through,
that's the thing is the pool's a little bit smaller for the Cup Series, obviously, because most of the guys we want to see are still racing. But I mean, there's opportunities with people like Jamie McMurray to jump in there, and some of these other guys too that have retired over the past few years.
Well, and it's hard too because you got guys who are retired now who they have no idea what this car can do. Right. But we do know that Boyer, Stewart, Dale Jr., they've all driven this car, in tests and things, a couple of different places. So that gives them a little bit of perspective on what the car can do on its own. But yeah, drafting at Daytona, it's gonna be different. They're not gonna have the insight that they normally would have, but they're still gonna be, they're not that far removed from the competition side. So you're gonna get some of that as well. So I think he'll do a fine job. He won't be as good as Dale Jr. or anything like that, but I think he'll do a fine job.
Yeah, he'll have some good lines, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's what you come for. You got to come for the comedy.
Yep. Speaking of SRX, we'll jump around a little bit here. The SRX series announced its 2022 schedule. Some new looks this year. We got Nashville and what was the other ones? Stafford that came back, right? Those the
Stafford's back. Yeah, Stafford's back. Nashville's back. And yeah, everything else four new places. They're not going to Knoxville or Eldora.
Yep.
We're going to 2 new dirt tracks, I-55 and Sharon Speedway. And then we've got Eric. I think we're all familiar with Five Flags from the Snowball Derby. That's where they're going to kick it off. And then South Boston. South Boston used to be on the Xfinity schedule many years ago, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong about that?
No, you are correct. And so, yeah, it is one of those tracks too that I feel like with this return to roots that we could maybe someday see back in, not in the Cup level, but maybe in one of the lower series as well. So it's been a while since I've seen it race at South Boston. I think it's deteriorated quite a bit, but they're still racing up there regularly. So, and it's a good track, good short little track, flat little track. It'll put on a good show for the SRX series. I mean, honestly, I'm happy with what we see here. The only track that I really didn't want to see us go back to was ORP or IRP or whatever the hell they're calling it this week. And we're not, so that's good. Instead, we're running the truck series there. So
yeah, no, this is a good schedule. I was upset that Slingard wasn't coming back. I also thought the schedule was interesting that they're going to run all the asphalt races first and then go to the dirt, which I'm wondering if having dirt in the middle of the season was kind of they learned that first season, probably hard to turn those cars back over
right
at that point. So we won't be ending the season at Nashville. Nashville's right smack dab in the middle. Then we're going to end the season on dirt, so that would be kind of cool. Give a chance for a couple of guys to, with some dirt experience, maybe to make a late championship run depending on who the roster is. I'm looking forward to that. I love this series, Eric. It really, I won't say it caught us off guard last year, but we really, really enjoyed it for what it was.
It caught me off guard last year. I mean, I was a critic, partially just to get under your skin and partially because I was skeptical, but it turned out to be a massive success.
Fun. Yeah.
And props to SRX. It could have been really easy to get sucked into going back to the same tracks, but they kept 2 to keep it a little familiar and moved on to some different places. And again, props to them for not keeping the easy one in Eldora. That's Tony's track. Really easy to keep that one on the schedule, but instead they branched out and trying a couple different places. So
I like that. I hope they keep changing the tracks every year. I like the staple of Nashville. Nashville can kind of be the Daytona of the SRX series, where you go there every year. It's a staple on the circuit. And then the rest of them, it should be. I like the idea of rotating short tracks across the country. I mean, they're really branching out. It was very Midwest focused last year, but now we're going to Florida, Virginia, Connecticut. Again, well, we're going to Connecticut again, but we're going out to Missouri, and back into Ohio, way to the east side of Ohio. So we're going where Eldora is more towards Indianapolis, if you think of it that way. So,
right.
Pretty cool. I love it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm some of these tracks. I mean, I hadn't really heard of Sharon Speedway before. I'm looking to see that one. That's one of the new ones. I mean, I-55 is one of the better dirt tracks in the country. And then we know Five Flags in South Boston. I think that we
Right.
can expect good racing there. And I love that we're starting the season with those two tracks. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, but the only disappointment I have really is that they're not close enough to me yet. Still, I want to want
Yeah,
one a
I
little
know.
closer.
Yeah.
I was really hoping to
Yeah.
see like Berlin get one this year or something, but
Well, yeah, maybe next year, maybe that's the track that gets one next year. And like I said, I was bummed we lost Slinger. That was the only one I was, if we could swap Stafford with Slinger, I would have been super pumped about that. But I'm not disappointed by it, too much. So
right.
yeah.
All right. Speaking of tracks, we got some track news this week, James. We'll kick it off with Martinsville Speedway announced that their first race of the season, the spring race, will only be 400 laps instead of 500.
Yep.
Bit of a change for us. We've run 500 laps at Martinsville forever. But my opinion on this, I'm a big fan of this. I think bunch this race up a little bit. You're going to amp up the intensity for this thing and make something special out of that spring race. That to make it a special race in addition to the playoff race at the end of the season. So what do you think about that change, James?
Well, fans are mad. Honestly, 100 laps doesn't. Eric, we've been screaming about this for years.
500 laps at Martinsville is too freaking long.
I love Martinsville, but the length of the race, 400 laps to 500, doesn't really do anything for me. I don't care if it's a 500 lap race. 400 laps is just as good.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be there for 500 laps. We don't need to be anywhere for 500 laps anymore.
No.
Maybe the Bristol night race, but again,
it's not necessary.
Yeah, cut off 100 laps here and there. That doesn't bother me.
Nope.
That doesn't bother me at all. I'm totally fine with it. I understand fans are upset. There's a lot of refunds being asked. I'm curious to see what the grandstands look like.
Yeah.
But Martinsville is one of those places I'd like to go someday, and I wouldn't care if it was a 400 or 500 lap race if it was me. But again, no. I'm not a season ticket holder there, so whatever.
Be happy you still got two races, guys, because that's the next thing that's going to happen. So, we lost a race in Michigan. Be happy that they only took 100 laps away and not all 500. So,
yeah, right.
Darlington's not going to sell backstretch seats for their May race, using the argument that they're going to focus their attention on a better fan experience for those on the front stretch. Obviously, it's just to cram people into the space a little bit better, make it look better for TV. Sounds like they'll still, for the Southern 500, sell all the seats. This is a trend that these tracks have done over the years. They've removed backstretch seating. It's been moved to the front stretch. Makes sense. All their pre-race stuff is focused towards the front stretch. You get kind of shafted a little bit on the backstretch. They don't have to drive the cars all the way around the track for driver intros, all that stuff. You're going to see this trend continue as these tracks reduce seating. And that's just the future NASCAR. And who cares, I guess. I guarantee the people that sit on the backstretch like it for a reason. There's obviously different unique views you get of a track. Michigan used to have that great view coming into turn 3 that the fans don't get anymore. But hey, again, it's all about consolidating things, and the more those stands are spread out, the more people they have to employ on a part-time basis to clean them and all that stuff. So,
I'm sure getting help is not, and getting help's got to not be very easy right now. For anybody, right. including a racetrack for a very, very partial schedule, for that type of work. So it can't be easy to do, which, Darlington was this close to being gone forever at one point. Yeah. So they've got 2 dates. I think they'll be okay. Just limiting the seat capacity. I think that's totally fine.
Right.
And fill that bad boy up for the Southern 500. Heck, Daytona had 2 massive grandstands at one point, Eric. You remember the backstretch of Daytona was huge.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the last Daytona 500 with the backstretch grandstands was the one I went to.
That sounds about right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Because it wasn't long after they took them down, or after mine that they took them down. So
yeah, because I went to 2013 and they started breaking ground on Rising in 2014, and so it was pretty close to the last 500 with the backstretch grandstands.
Yeah, it was something to go there for the 500 when I went and see those things full. It was pretty so crazy. Cool.
Yeah, it was full when I was there. It was crazy. There was a lot of people there, boy.
Oh yeah. Speaking of tracks that were almost lost, North Wilkesboro, man, looks like it's coming back.
Oh my God, the Grim Reaper rising from the ashes.
Marcus Smith shared some of the renderings of what the revitalized North Wilkesboro Speedway will look like or could look like. And man, James, I don't know about you, but I think the perfect mix of the old and the new to really preserve the heritage of this track, but make
Yeah.
it an updated speedway. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like, there's part of me that feels like I missed an opportunity to go by that place when it was defunct.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I'm really excited to see it coming back. And
A big thanks to COVID. If it wasn't for COVID, this wouldn't even happen.
Yeah, this is pretty cool, man. Dale Jr. and we talked last time on the pod about Dale Jr.'s impact on the sport, and he was part of bringing North Wilkesboro Speedway back with the things that he was doing, iRacing, and some of that stuff. So kudos to everyone involved. It looks great. Part of me is gonna miss that there was this legendary ghost track out there, but to see it come back is going to be so cool. And it takes me back seeing cars on that track, and it's going to, we're a few years away from this thing being on schedule, but it's going to be cool when it comes back. And man, I hope fans, pour out some cash to get there and get back and get their butts and seats. But it's funny, Eric, this track died during the peak of our, I guess our most important years as NASCAR fans when we were still young.
Yeah.
We're not so young anymore. But 1996, Jeff Gordon, that whole era, and there's the pictures of the last race, and it looked so cool and so old and new at the same time. And that's the kind of the feel I get with the design that was shared, is it's old and new at the same time, which I like. I think that's going to be the the heritage of this place.
Yeah. Just incredible that it's going to come back. And the thing that's, I guess it makes sense when NASCAR currently has 2 tracks on its schedule. Ben Kennedy has implied that the LA Coliseum thing is something that will stick around if it's successful somewhere in the schedule, not necessarily as the Clash at the beginning of the season. So if you've already got 2 tracks on the schedule that you literally have to build each year before you come to the track. They said they put $1 million into the construction of the track at the LA's Coliseum. I guess it's a lot more feasible to take an old track and fix it back up, huh?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think it was well over $1 million was what, was what I had seen. And then I heard on the Teardown, Jeff Gluck's pod with Jordan Bianchi, that the grass is still there. They didn't tear it. They didn't tear anything out. They layered it and put the asphalt on top of the grass.
They did like they do for Supercross, and they put plywood and gravel and everything right on top of it.
That's so crazy.
Right?
That's so crazy. Yeah. I'm going to see. I can't wait to see how this thing works.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I want to throw in here real quick that I forgot about that I didn't put in the notes, but I wanted to mention announcement this past week that the Champion Racing Association, which is the CRA powered by JEG series, was recently purchased, and they are talking about bringing a national touring series for late models again. This will be very reminiscent of the old ASA days. If any of you guys have been around since the ASA days, that was my heyday, man. I love the ASA series. I thought it was one of the best series in the country. Until they decided they wanted to race on big tracks, and they ruined it. But very excited about the CRA announcement and what it could mean for auto racing in the U.S.
Dude, that was our youth again. We going back. ASA was, Eric, Jimmy Johnson raced right down the road from us,
right?
Like right over there.
Yeah,
from the ASA series. Mike Eddy and oh man, that takes me back, dude. Those were such cool days.
You're telling me, man. Just incredible if we can get it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Super excited about the fact that we've got an asphalt track here not too far away in Birch Run. The Birch Run Speedway used to be Dixie Motor Speedway that runs the CRA series. They have them 3 times this year. So that bodes well for a national touring event to come there when they create that. So super excited about it. I just wanted to mention that because I went and watched them last year down at Birch Run, and it was a great show. So very cool.
Eric, if you don't mind me asking to pick your brain a little bit, where what tracks was the ASA trying to get on near the end? Because that I'm a little foggy on.
So
on that.
They always raced on the short tracks around the country, and then they
mostly Midwest.
Yeah,
mostly Midwest, and that was and to give people a little bit of a history lesson there too, like Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, like those guys, Dick Trickle, they all came out of the ASA. Like,
it was a feeding series, just about.
It was definitely a feeding.
There were guys that came up too, like Butch Miller, that didn't succeed in NASCAR, or had rough careers in NASCAR. Mike Eddy, of course, is the I think has the most championships in the ASA series. Never even attempted NASCAR. Just continued on in that series for his career. But no, they had a TV contract with, I think, Speed Channel, and unlike your typical TV contracts where the TV network will pay for the rights to broadcast your races, it was the other way around. The series was paying Speed Channel to air their races, and they decided to go big time, and they raced at Charlotte. They raced at a bunch of the SMI tracks. They had a race in '92 at Michigan. They raced twice at Michigan, I believe, in their overall series, but the '92 one was the most recent one. The GM Goodwrench 200, I believe it was. I have a banner from it in my parents' garage. But, so they tried to run these big tracks, and it basically boiled down to, I believe they had their championship race at Charlotte, and they ran out of money. They didn't have money to pay the drivers, and the track essentially possessed all of their haulers and everything and said, no, you're not leaving here until we get this taken care of. And that was the end of the series. So I'd have to... You didn't give me a chance to research it, so I'd have to do a little bit of research.
No, I know I put you on the spot.
I
put you on the spot.
It was a very brutal ending to the series, and then of course there's still an ASA series out there by name, but it's not the old American Speed Association that used to run the national series. So
yeah, and I think when we talk ASA racing, and if you're listening to this podcast, and I don't know if you're out in California or whatever, you're like, what the hell is the ASA series? I mean, that it really was like this really national series, but it was in our backyard.
Yeah, it was mostly Midwest.
And I remember how big of a deal it was that the ASA was coming to Tri-City Motor Speedway, right down the road from us. And when I was growing up, Eric, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but I lived less than 2 miles from the racetrack. Like, that's where I grew up, was right down the road.
That's funny that we lived that close to each other.
I know, it's really funny, but and that's probably why we're doing this podcast today, honestly. But I remember like gathering at someone's house because TNN, the old Turner National, what was it, Turner News Network or Turner?
Turner, it was the National Network at one time, but
the National Network, that's it. Yeah. And anyway, TNN was, and you can see it on YouTube, but TNN was promoting the race, and
I think it was 97 that they
I think they did it live? Didn't they do it 2 years
there? Well, they ran it more than once, but I think it was only live on TNN once. And I remember they brought in 2 of the big Musco lighting trucks and parked them behind the grandstand in the front stretch, and they turned those suckers on. And when they turned those lights on, because they ran them a few nights before the races for practice and stuff, you could see that place from miles. It was so freaking bright. And at the track, it was like daylight there. It was amazing.
Yeah. That might have been that era right there might have been the apex of stock car auto racing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was.
Well, it was too bad because the one that they broadcast on TNN actually wasn't that great of a race for Tri-City, because Tri-City put on some good shows in that series. But I guess the biggest thing was Mike Eddy spun early and went down a lap and spent the entire race trying to get his lap back and just passing. If you guys, I mean, we're in the weeds here a little bit because a lot of the people
listening to this podcast
that's
what we do on this podcast.
Don't know this racetrack. But Tri-City Motor Speedway, when it was an asphalt track, had a dogleg in the back stretch, and they had a guardrail on the inside and the wall on the outside, so there's no room to go. Yeah. And the guys who knew the track could run wide open through that dogleg, and most people lifted. And so you had Mike Eddy passing people 3 wide because he'd raced there for years, grew up racing at that track.
Yeah, Mike Eddy lived right not too far from there too. I mean, that's where his formative years were spent at the trick track, as they called it back then. It's not the trick track anymore. They put dirt on it, but
he came back to finish on the lead lap in that one, but he did not win. But it was incredible. And
that dog leg, Eric, made for some incredible looking racing.
Oh yeah,
because you had guys would close the gap,
mm-hmm.
and then the guy who had to slow down would then just take it into the corner so much harder.
Yep.
It was a lot of, it was like a rubber band. I remember all the time.
Yep.
Because guys, like you said, guys couldn't figure out how to hit that straight.
If you guys want to see it, look up Tri-City Motor Speedway on YouTube. There are some
ASA,
the ASA races on there. But even if you go look up some of the old late model races, there's some races up there. There is a Tri-City Raceway that is not Tri-City Motor Speedway.
So Auburn, Michigan.
Yeah, if you get a dirt track, you got the wrong place. And then Tri-City Motor Speedway now is dirt. So if you're looking at anything recent, but anything before like 2004, you'll see the old asphalt track. And the half mile at Tri-City was just incredible. It was such a great place. But it was hard to drive. People didn't like it because it was hard to drive. Unless you were from there. If you were Steve Sovey or Ray Malin or Bob Seneker or Mike Eddy, Chaz Howe, Ed Howe, those guys knew how to drive it. But the rest of them didn't. So
and diehard race fans know the Howe name.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're still cranking out chassis.
Oh yeah, sports cars and stuff now too. It's incredible what they do out of little old Beaverton, Michigan.
Yeah, they're the place I work in real life. They're a client of ours. So
there you go.
We work with Howe a little bit. I can't believe we got buried in the ASA. That's good stuff, man.
I know
that happens.
I found Chaz on Facebook and did a little reminiscing with him once. That was pretty cool because we hated the Howes back in the day. They were the Dale Earnhardts at Tri-City. We didn't like them at all. But now I respect what they did because they created quite the fan base out there for sure. You either loved them or you hated them. So
one of my favorite guys was Bill the Hammer Higgins. The Hammer. What a great nickname.
There you go.
I love that. I love that nickname.
I grew up watching Pete Weiss and Denny Barry. Those are a couple of my favorites back in the day out at Tri-City.
Steve Sovey.
Sovey was
Bill
great.
Higgins.
Yeah.
So Sovey knew that place better than anybody.
Oh yeah, he did. There was nobody better than Sovey out there.
Yep. Good stuff. Wow.
All right, back to NASCAR. James, last news of the bunch, kind of the most interesting one. NASCAR has instituted some stiffer penalties for the 2022 season. I've got them pulled up here. So in addition to our L1 penalties, we've got L2 and L3 penalties now. And the L3s are the interesting ones. So when it comes to fiddling with the race car, NASCAR is not going to tolerate any of that stuff to the point of up to $500,000 in fines, suspensions, vehicle suspensions from races, team event roster member suspensions up to 6 races, playoff points, 25 to 50 playoff points, 120 to 180 points. NASCAR is not messing around with this. They do not want these teams messing with these cars. I'll give you a quote here real quick from Steve O'Donnell, NASCAR's Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer. He says, as we discussed during the test at Charlotte and at length with teams over the offseason, the new deterrence model will be a culture shift for our industry. The car was a collaborative project designed to emphasize performance at the track and the unrivaled abilities of our teams, drivers, and pit crews. There will be strong penalties for any teams who run contrary to that design so the fans can focus on our drivers and the great racing expected from NASCAR. So, James, well, no more cheating. Cheating's over.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I will say one thing. We did not see any NASCAR teams lose a win since they started taking wins away for cheating.
We did get the Joey Logano playoff removal.
We did get that, yes.
Which the win still counted, but it didn't count towards the playoffs, which then he ended up missing the playoffs.
Right.
So there was that one. But yes, you're right. There's been no wins removed.
So who's the first one? Who's the first one to get an L3 penalty? I mean,
Chad Knaus isn't crew chief anymore, but probably Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah. I
mean, what do you think of this, James? There's long been a history of cheating in NASCAR. There's a lot of people who like Dale Jr. who chalk it up to ingenuity. There's a lot of people who completely hate it altogether. What do you think? Should there be an element of that in the sport still? Are we losing something from that from our roots with that, or do we like this that there's pretty much a no tolerance policy here now?
Yeah, I mean, I like it because NASCAR is sticking to their guns of this is going to be as even and fair of a series as we can possibly get. So they're going to try to hammer people right out of the gate.
Right.
I don't. they can do what they want with these rules, but teams are going to find a way. And NASCAR, what's going to end up happening is they're going to skirt the rules somehow. That they're going to find loopholes, and NASCAR is going to get mad. And I mean, Eric, this is what's always happened. It's always been that way,
right? It doesn't matter how tight the rule book goes. It just means that the tolerances are going to be tighter, but it doesn't mean
the
that
big
it's going to
teams
stop.
and the big teams will get speed
Yep.
out of these cars before anybody else. It's just the way it's always been. They can do whatever they want, Eric. They could show up at the track with a car fully assembled and say, "Don't touch this thing until the green flag starts," and some teams would find a way to fiddle with that thing, to get more speed out of it. I mean, that's just the way that's auto racing, man. That's just auto racing. And anywhere you go, you're going to find that kind of stuff. I mean, heck, it was happening in F1 at the highest stage right towards the end of that championship battle last year between Red Bull and Mercedes. They were duking it out, on the computers, basically.
Yeah.
I
mean, that being said, those series, while there's obviously the tight tolerances there too, but those series are still based around, manufacturing your own stuff. Yep. Whereas this is not anymore. We're not a sport where you manufacture your own vehicle, your own parts. You're buying these parts from the same place everybody else is. So you have to be more creative with those edges to get that edge. And, maybe that makes it a little bit more defined, James, as to when people are cheating now. It makes it easier for NASCAR to police it because there's a line. It's you bought the part. If you've modified the part, it's cheating.
Yeah, I hope it keeps things fair. Yeah. I'm not optimistic that, Front Row Motorsports, for example, is going to be a juggernaut.
No,
I just that's not going to happen. But
it's the same thing you said. Your money teams are still going to be the top teams. Period.
Yeah, and they're going to have the resources to look in between the lines on these rules, where the smaller teams just aren't going to. The smaller teams are not going to be the ones getting busted for this. It's going to be Gibbs. It's going to be Hendrick, Stewart Haas. They're going to find the ways to try to skirt some of the stuff, and they'll get nabbed, I think, from time to time. But having a win taken away is pretty extreme, so we'll see.
NASCAR or having to sit one out.
NASCAR doesn't like taking wins away. They will do everything they can not to take a win away.
I mean, I'm glad that we're in the era of, we get a big penalty over 1/18 of an inch versus the old days of hydraulic spoilers and lead shot coming out of the rails and all that stuff. I mean, the blatant cheating that happened back in the day, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. But now you got windows that dent in and stuff like that. So
what an era that was.
So
that seems like it was forever ago. It wasn't really that long ago.
The only thing I'll say is I'm all for policing this stuff as long as we continue to know at the end of the day on Sunday who won the race. Yep. That was the biggest thing NASCAR did in recent years to really help is to get rid of that Tuesday announcement of penalties.
Yeah.
That was annoying. So
because now we know.
Yep. With that, James, we go to LA this weekend. Well, we don't. You and I aren't going. But NASCAR is. It is the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. It is finally here. It is finally happening. I don't know about you, James. I know your thoughts on this race. But I was pretty excited to watch a clip from Race Hub sitting there on the side of the Coliseum with the track in the background as they're still painting the DoorDash logos on the inside of the turns. Yep. I'm getting ready for Sunday. I'm a little disappointed because this weekend I have hockey like crazy. And I don't have COVID as an excuse this weekend, so I will be watching delayed. So hopefully the weather is good in LA like it should be.
Yep.
But let me find the right sheet here because
I know where.
Go ahead.
I was telling my wife because I was telling her, I'm like, hey, we're starting to record weekly again.
And she's like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
No. And she goes, "What do you mean?" No. Well, she goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Well, the season's starting." She goes, "It started already last weekend?" I'm like, No, this weekend it's start. What do you like? The Daytona 500? No, we're racing on a football field. It's so many questions.
Yeah, right.
So many questions. Most of it was, oh, you're starting that thing again. That you do. It's pretty much that was the gist of it. But yes, that's happening. So
my wife was really excited about the podcast at first, and she's become less excited over the years.
Yeah, the wives are just irritated with us usually.
Yeah, exactly.
For most things, yeah,
and usually rightfully so.
Yeah.
I will admit.
Yeah.
So wanted to talk a little bit about NASCAR.com has a good breakdown of what to expect this weekend. We have 36 cars set to qualify for the event. We start things off with practice on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Fox Sports 2 will carry that, as well as Fox Sports app and MRN Radio. Busch Light Clash single car qualifying. I'm not used to qualifying, James. We haven't done it much.
Yeah, I haven't said that word in a while.
Yeah, 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. Fox Sports 1, MRN, Fox Sports app. On then Sunday at 3 p.m. we run the Clash qualifying heats. 4 heat races. I believe they are 25 laps apiece. With, let's see, the top up to 10 cars in the race. Fastest will start on the pole, heat race, blah, blah, blah. Top 4 finishers from the heats will qualify for the main event. We will run 2 last chance qualifiers at 4:10 p.m. approximately Eastern Time on Fox and Fox Sports app. MRN Radio and the big show is at 6 p.m. The Busch Light Clash main event on Fox, MRN, and the Fox Sports app. Yeah,
I'm ready.
It's going to be a good time. NASCAR detailing who's going to be at the Clash. James, are you excited about this? Pitbull, Ice Cube, DJ Ski will be at the Clash. All those guys. Kobe Jones, a former player of the U.S. national soccer team.
I know Kobe Jones.
Monica Palumbo will also be one of the in-stadium hosts. Kobe and Monica will be hosting at the track. Monica, a former Miss Nextel Cup, I believe, right?
Yeah, she was. Yep.
Ricky,
I like Ice Cube.
Ricky Rockman, formerly of Headbangers Ball, whoever that is, will be the host of the NASCAR Fan Fest. You know who that is?
Oh, you don't know who Ricky Ratman is?
No clue. Not a clue.
Oh, he's been hanging around NASCAR for a long time.
Lightning McQueen will be there, though. I know who Lightning McQueen is. First public display in 3 years, the NASCAR Fan Fest.
The actual Owen Wilson or the actual Mike?
It just says Lightning McQueen, so I don't know. But here's the big news. Here's the big news, James. Are you ready for this?
7-time Piston Cup champion, Lightning McQueen.
Right. NASCAR Refuel is launching a new menu item, James, for this race. It is the taco, the Torch Taco at the Clash. The Torch Taco is a fusion of great track food with 2 iconic LA street foods, the taco and the LA street dogs.
Eric, what did I tell you before we did the podcast today about what kind of mood I was in? And you just know how to push my buttons,
right?
Man.
Unfortunately, this does not come with a side of Prilosec, but you probably will want some. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every meal that is eaten that you eat that's branded NASCAR Refuel takes 2 years off of your life expectancy.
Yeah, I'm with you there, but I still want to. I can't try them here because they don't come here. I want to try one.
Well, our buddy Todd's had it, so
right. Yeah, and he survived somehow.
He did. He's alive.
Grand Marshals will be announced this week and will all have notable ties to the Los Angeles area. Whoopity-doo. Race Hub did have a neat feature on the construction of the track. There's been all kinds of stuff about that. It's a pretty cool deal. It's incredible. They built a racetrack in a freaking football stadium. Safer barriers and all. And it looks, aside from everything else, aside from how it's going to race this weekend, it looks freaking cool. I'll give them that.
Amazing. It's an amazing thing that they did. I will say that.
What do you think, James? Crap show, or you think it's going to be? So here's one other thing to take into consideration here. We are starting a season in Daytona, with basically teams having one car, essentially, not being able to take a backup car to Daytona.
1.5 or 2.5.
Yeah,
cars, yep.
My understanding is a lot of the teams are going to use the testing car that they've been using for this race at the Clash. So they're probably gonna be some pretty janky cars to begin with. But yeah, so you got a bunch of teams that are either not going to want to tear up equipment because they want to make sure they have something as a backup for Daytona, or these drivers put a helmet on and they get stupid anyway and it's not going to matter. What are we going to see? We're going to see a calm race, or we're going to see a complete cluster wreck fest?
These guys are going to smell the checkered flag, and it's been a whole offseason of not racing. They're going to The thing is, Eric, we're going to be going so slow. We can't really tear them up. I mean, you could tear the tear the shit.
They're not metal anymore, James. It's just fiberglass, so it'd be pretty easy to take those composite bodies off.
Yeah, you're gonna rip the bodies apart, but the chassis should be fine on these things. That's gonna basically be bumper cars going 80 miles an hour. I'm curious to see what the top speed is. Actually, I don't know if they're gonna. Do you think they can get to 100 miles an hour?
I don't know. Probably not.
I don't think so.
Probably not with the current setup.
Possible. Yeah.
I don't think they'll be able to connect the. I don't think they'll be able to connect the horsepower to the ground enough to go that fast.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know what to think of this. I'll sum up my feelings in one statement on this, and it's more of a request. Please don't embarrass ourselves. That's all I want out of this event. Like, please be a good event, and please let's not this be an embarrassment. That's all I ask out of this. It's a really cool thing that they were able to pull off. The DJ Ski stuff bothers me. Sorry, Jeff Gluck. Pitbull, I've never been a Pitbull guy, but I'm glad he's in the sport. He seems like a nice man. But I just don't want, especially the week before the Super Bowl, right? If that's in LA too, I just don't want people tuning into this thing and just pointing and laughing at NASCAR because it's such a bad thing that they did.
Yeah.
I really hope that if we never do it again, that's fine. But let's just get through it with, happy faces and, like maybe a sigh of relief would be fine with me too. If I had a sigh of relief, I told you a couple weeks ago, I'm excited to go racing. Yeah. And that's where I stand on. I'm just, this is like me worried about Bristol Dirt on steroids. Like I was worried about Bristol Dirt.
And how did Bristol Dirt turn out, James? It wasn't great. It wasn't wonderful, but it wasn't a complete cluster either.
It wasn't embarrassing. That's it. Yep.
So I think these guys are professionals. These guys are going to go out and they're going to put on a good show. Yeah.
They're going to race.
If this was the Truck Series doing this based on the fiasco they did at the dirt track last year, I would be scared, but I think these guys will put on a good show. I think they're both going to be competitive and not completely stupid. I think we'll see some stupidity. I think we'll see some action. We're going to see some hurt feelings, and we're going to get to see some people upset with each other. But that's good. We want to see that. But I think you'll see some good. I will predict, James, this is going to be much the same as when we went to Eldora for the first time with the Truck Series. That we went out there and we're like, they're getting ready for the heat races, and we're thinking this is going to be a mess. They're going to go into turn one and just wreck the whole field. And we ran almost caution free through the heat races without any major incidents. And I think that's what we're going to see here this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think they're going to take it easy and get to the big show, and then it's going to be fireworks from there. But yeah. I mean, Eric, I'll ask you this question. Do I have a right to feel the way I do as far as my skepticism on the things that NASCAR does?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Well, I want to make sure, I don't want to be a wet blanket for being a wet blanket's sake. Like, I have legitimate concerns about the things that NASCAR does from time to time.
You have a right to, especially this season. I mean, the last 3 years, let's put it this way. There's two types of fans there's three types of fans that are like us, that have been in the sport as long as we have. There's the fan that's just like, hey, I love change. Let's just change everything. There's the fan that's like, that just wants to see their series survive and is willing to look at changes skeptically and but accept them. And then there's the fans that are just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And we're still here. So,
I mean, that's right.
I'm skeptical too. I want to see them do things that are going to make the series continue to survive. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about this whole season, James. We got a brand new car that is the biggest change we've ever had in the sport. And it's not going to be as easy as just changing our mind halfway through the season to go back to last year's car. Those are gone. Those are sold.
Yeah. And that's my first biggest concern is this race being a fiasco, which I really don't think that's going to happen.
See, I'm not concerned about this race being a fiasco because it doesn't matter.
You say
I know,
that.
I get it. It's a big stage. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It's not a points race.
They're promoting the crap out of this. We're already getting laughed at by NFL fans during promos. Like, if you go on Twitter, like, we're getting laughed at, we get laughed at a lot. That's fine. We got the Let's Go Brandon thing that we get laughed at about that too.
Right.
But yes, it doesn't matter on the stage of it's not worth any points. It's it's an exhibition, right? It's
Yeah.
if it doesn't work, throw it out. But NASCAR, as you said, over $1 million invested into the build of this track, probably just as much in the promotion
Oh yeah.
of
Easy.
this race. So yeah, they've invested a lot into this thing, and I just want it not to be, I just don't want like the track to fall apart,
Right.
or like that. Like I know I'm being the wet blanket, but that's my role.
Yeah.
So, and secondly, like I really, NASCAR has been pretty brash about we're racing the next gen car all season long, and we we have teams who don't have enough cars to start the dang season, and I'm really worried about that. So
Yeah,
I
I'm more
have
nervous
like
about that than the Coliseum.
yeah, I have like those are my legit, like I have legit concern. If we're racing and we have cars to race on tracks, I have no problem with that.
Right.
None at all. I know even if the show is bad at any other racetrack out there, it's NASCAR racing and I'm in, man. I don't care if it's bad. I'm in. I'm watching these races, and if I don't like it, I'm going to tell you I don't like it, but I'm coming back next week.
Yeah.
But if we can run into a situation where we don't have cars to race, 10 weeks into the season, that's going to get me pretty upset. So that's where like I am just like tepid. I'm excited. I'm more excited for the start of this season than I've been in a bit. But also I have this nervous energy about everything going on. But Eric, NASCAR has pulled stuff off too. I don't want to say NASCAR has failed at everything because that's not true. They are pulling stuff off, and if they're ready to go forward with this car, I'm willing to trust them.
Well, here's the thing I'll say about the Coliseum. We race more powerful cars than these on quarter mile tracks all over the country, on flat quarter mile tracks, in super late models. And yes, they're designed differently than these cars. Of course, these cars are probably more similar to those than the previous Cup car.
Have you seen some of the tracks that the World of Outlaws run on?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, just again, down the road here in Birch Run, they have Dixie Motor Speedway. And before they built the high bank track around the outside, they race super late models every Friday night on this little quarter mile flat track. We race them at, in a football stadium already at Bowman Gray. They put on good shows there. I think that this will be a good show. It may not be a barn burner. It might not be the greatest show we have. But I'll tell you what, James, all it's going to take is a one run-in with a couple popular drivers and not being a shit show to just make this the biggest race of the season.
Yeah, and if the drivers go into it with the SRX driver mentality of this is a show.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've got legit stars. Like if Bubba Wallace gets mad at somebody, that's gonna reverberate. There's gonna be shockwaves from stuff like that. So yes, totally agree. 100%.
I don't think you're gonna be able to not get mad at people because you're gonna. I mean, it's a wide track, but you're gonna make contact, man. Those corners
going
are
into
tight.
those corners, it's really, really. This is a legit paperclip. Like we call Martinsville the paperclip. This is a legit paperclip.
Let's put it this way: on the last lap, you're gonna have a shot at taking a run at somebody going into turn 4.
Oh heck yeah!
Or turn 2 or whatever it's called. I don't know if they're 2 turns or 4 turns, but you'll be able to wreck somebody.
This is a 2-turn racetrack,
right? So I don't know, man. I'm excited. I'm ready to see it.
Yeah. I'm with you too, man. I'm cautious, like I said. I have a lot of concerns, but listen, I'm a racing fan. It's a race. Let's go. Yeah. I'm ready. I want to see some racing, and I want it to be good. That's all I want.
I'm with you. We get a little bit of a head start this year instead of having to wait quite as long as we've had to in the past. So get this one, get a couple weeks before we go to Daytona. So anything else with the Coliseum we want to talk about before we head on out of here, James?
Ryan McGee shared a good tweet.
Yeah.
According to his research, this is the 16th different facility in the state of California that the Cup Series will have raced on. Some really good ones on here I hadn't seen. Obviously, we know Auto Club and we know Sonoma, but 16 total races. And if you go to his Twitter account, you can see the list if you want to do some deeper diving.
Oh man.
Yeah, maybe he'll make an appearance.
Don't have Fox. He can't come back because he'll tear up the field underneath the track.
Was I trying to say dig deep and do research? I don't know.
I just heard digger and it gave me chills.
That was a word vomit. Anyway, so yeah, we've got races out in California.
It gave me
before.
chills, and they weren't good chills, James.
No, remember the cartoon show they did?
Oh God.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of NASCAR getting laughed at,
actual theme song to go with it.
Oh my God.
I can hear it in my head right now, but I'm gonna move on.
Don't do it. Don't even do it.
James, you got any shout outs this week?
I
do if you want to think about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I was stumbling around on YouTube and discovered, let me click back on this link here because I don't remember the name of the guy. Discovered a channel. Whoops, don't play. Discovered a channel, Stapleton 42. And this video is Abandoned Rockingham Speedway Full Tour, Hidden NASCAR History and Storage. So we talked about North Wilkesboro getting revamped, but North Carolina Motor Speedway, Rockingham, is also getting repurposed. Mm-hmm. And this guy goes all over the place, and he got an inside tour with the caretaker at the track. And I mean, this is a detailed tour, that's James. Cool. This is out back behind the track in what they call the boneyard, where they have a bunch of old scoreboards and old relics from the track, through all the garages, into the infield care center, up into the press box, into the race control, all that stuff. It's really, really cool. If you ever want to see the inner workings of a track, basically from, the late 90s, early 2000s, because while there's been a little bit of stuff at Rockingham since then, there hasn't been much. So most of the stuff's still dated. It's really cool. The link is in the show notes if you want to check it out. He also has a video, awesome, which I started watching, where he's going through one of Darrell Waltrip's old trailers with a bunch of Darrell Waltrip's old memorabilia and stuff in it.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's a cool channel to watch. I haven't dug into his stuff a whole lot, but it looks like he does a lot of this type of stuff. So very neat, and worth the watch. The video is 47 minutes long, so grab a popcorn and that before you sit down and watch it. So, but it's good stuff. There you go.
Awesome. I love it. Nice work. I'm going to use my shout out to Matthew Stafford.
I was wondering if you're
going
to
the Super Bowl, and he's taking the Lions fans with him. Let's go.
I was going to go there if you didn't go there. Yeah, congrats to Matt. Congrats to Matt. Get himself in the Super Bowl. That is awesome.
Listen, we do not hide that we are a Michigan-based podcast. Eric hates the Lions. I am in a bad marriage with the Lions.
Well, the best part is that James is a Lions fan in theory. I hate the Lions, but we're both excited about Stafford going because
heck yeah, man, I'm pumped.
I'm excited because it's kind of like rubbing it in the Lions' faces that hey,
me too.
Your guy left and now he's going.
Yep, so. I'm excited, man. I don't care. I just want him to win one, so I want him to do it. Why not?
He took down Brady. Now he's going to the Super Bowl. Second time.
Retired.
Yeah,
retired Tom Brady.
Second time in history that the team in the Super Bowl is playing in its home field. Yep. Second year in a row that has happened. Brady won last year at his home field, so this year it's Matt's.
Yep,
it's gonna happen.
I'm pumped, man. I can't help it.
I went from not giving a crap about football to now having to watch the Super Bowl because I've watched all in.
I've watched so much football, and that's how you know I'm ready for racing season 2 because I have watched so much football the last few weeks.
Well, you'll feel right at home at the Coliseum then.
I've watched more Rams games than Lions games this year. I'll say it.
Yeah.
And I'm a Lions fan, but I am like I said, I'm in a bad marriage. So I'm going to use my shout out to pump up the Matt Stafford Super Bowl appearance. So there you go.
I saw today somebody said Eminem's performing at halftime. Matthew Stafford's in the Super Bowl. It's the closest Lions have ever gotten.
Yep. When they were kicking the field goal to tie, I said at that moment, this is the closest the Lions fans have ever been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how listen. We'll take it.
Well, I said LA.
I'm never gonna get one with my team, Eric. So I will take the bastard version of the Super Bowl from Matt Stafford.
The Super Bowl is in LA. The NFL wanted LA to win this game.
Yeah.
Come on. Oh, yeah. They wanted
unless it was Tom. Yeah, unless they wanted Tom Brady.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Man, good stuff. I'm so pumped.
There you go. It's still the off season, James. We're going into the season this weekend. Do you have a Jackass corner? I don't have one yet.
I kind of do, but I feel like if I do it, I'm going to end the podcast.
I do have one actually. So go ahead if you have one.
Well, okay, I'll go first because you can probably pick the podcast. I am upset about the Floyd Mayweather stuff. I'm going to just come out and say it.
Yeah.
people are celebrating the fact that Floyd Mayweather is involved in NASCAR, and I'll keep it short. Go look up what that guy went to jail for, and tell me that that's a good thing to have him involved in the sport. And come back to me and tweet at me if you want to about that, at James Cush on Twitter. I'll say it right now. Eric, I was so upset about some of the stuff I was seeing on Twitter today that I started to shake.
Yeah,
I had the shakes because I cannot understand why people are touting the fact that we have Floyd Mayweather. This isn't like Michael Jordan coming into the sport, man. This guy's got a history of some stuff. We don't have to get into it, and it bothers me. So he's my jackass of all time jackass.
Is it him or is it NASCAR for bringing him in?
Both. NASCAR
right.
Can get some of that too.
I'll give you that.
Yep, they both get it.
I'm gonna pick on NASCAR Ignition once again.
Yes, and you did, and you brought it back.
Yeah, and Motorsports Games, right? Is that the company's name? I want to make sure I get the name right.
Sure.
Want to make sure it's right because
it probably has a typo in their name anyway.
Yeah, they hosted, and as a matter of fact, I think I was dealing with COVID as I was watching their town hall that they hosted on YouTube.
You were deep into it, man.
Yeah, where they were responding to customers' questions. Now, full disclosure, I have not purchased this game, have not played this game, have no intention of purchasing this game.
You did at one time.
Yes, I had totally intended to buy it
until I purchased it and was so upset.
Fortunately, there was a pre-release, and I did not get in on the pre-release because everybody else got to test it, and I got to realize there was no point in jumping in on this bandwagon. So here's the deal: I will forgive a company for screwing up, and it's very frustrating that people release games nowadays that aren't ready before they go to market
all the time.
But it's very consistent. It happens a lot, and I can sort of forgive that. But when this company hosts a town hall that's supposed to answer questions, and all the questions they answer the whole way is, here's why we didn't do that, and here's why we're not going to do that. That just pisses me off. And it was infuriating to watch this. And again, I have no money invested in this game. I do have money invested in their NASCAR Heat game for the Nintendo Switch, which I kind of almost regretted buying just based on their attitude in this town hall. It was, James, I don't know if you watched any of it, but it was just irritating.
No, I didn't. You told me about it, and I'm trying to put NASCAR Ignition as far out of my memory as I possibly can.
One of the questions they were asked is there's no fuel gauge in the game and there's no tire wear indicator. And people are asking why those can't be included in the game. And the developer says they don't want to include those in the game because they are going for a level of realism, and the real drivers don't have those at their disposal. So one, iRacing, the most advanced racing sim out there, has both of those things. And two, tell me the realism of a car flying 7,000 feet in the air from contact on the backstretch at Bristol. I mean, for God's sakes, it was the most asinine, ignorant freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. I was so mad watching this thing.
Man, that's really good.
I will say, that's please do not buy NASCAR Ignition. Do not waste your money on that game, and hopefully either they fix this thing, or NASCAR awards their contract to another company, because it was a disaster. I was irate. So there you go, James. You thought you were bringing it down, but I just brought it down even more.
Well, you think you're irate watching that town hall. Imagine me, who actually bought the game and started playing it and realized that I couldn't even. Eric, it didn't function. It, honest to God, did not work. I could barely get on the racetrack.
They were asked about the fact that the car pulls to the left, and they have that. They left that in the game because it's realistic, and that's the way the car actually is. But I don't know when the last time was you drove a NASCAR race car with a joystick. So that's not realistic. So come on, idiots. For God's sakes. Man. Just asinine. But James, their excuse is that they were developing it with the intent of releasing it only for next-gen consoles. And then because of COVID, had to release it on the current gen. And so that's the reason that they can't put a rear view mirror in a game when NASCAR Thunder had a rear view mirror in the game.
Yeah. Oh, man. Good stuff. Wow. I played NASCAR Heat 5 the other day just for fun. Yeah. It still works great.
Yeah. I'm enjoying just running in the Dirt Late Model series on NASCAR Heat on the Switch.
Yeah, it's fun. Yep. And I'm really hopeful with the SRX announcement that we have some new tracks for the SRX game, which has actually been pretty fun. So, especially since they introduced late models.
Yeah.
Which me and Barron Speedway still haven't connected on that, and it really bums me out every time I think about it. Gotta make that happen. He's busy with Baron Bash, so he's doing his thing right now.
Very cool deal he's doing as well. Another shout out to him.
Oh yeah. Yep, always.
James, you already mentioned, but where can they find you on social media if they want to hit you up?
At James Cush on Twitter.
Spam away, guys. You can find me at TSuperspeedway on Twitter. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/TheSuperspeedway. For more of the podcast, you can visit our website at thesuperspeedway.com. You can find old episodes of the podcast, show notes, links to articles we discuss, past race coverage, photos, all that stuff. Check it out there. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, wherever you found us today. We hope you subscribe and continue to listen. We'll be back next week to break down the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, and then we will get back with you and preview the upcoming season, all that stuff. Lots of stuff to talk about as we head into the beginning of the 2022 NASCAR season. We'll be sitting down in front of the TV this weekend watching the Coliseum. We'll be back next week to discuss it all with you guys, break it all down, see what happens, watch the shit show, whatever it is. We'll be back then. Until then, let's go racing.